7 signs he doesn't love you. He's just using you. One of the most painful truths about relationships is that someone can enjoy having you in their life without truly loving you. They can enjoy your attention, your loyalty, your support, your affection, your willingness to always be there for them. And yet, when you look closely, something feels missing. Because being valued and being used can feel surprisingly similar in the beginning. Both involve attention. Both involve connection. Both involve time together. That's why so many people stay in one-sided relationships longer than they should. Not because they're blind, because they're hopeful. They keep believing that if they love a little harder, give a little more, or remain patient a little longer, the relationship will eventually become what they dreamed it could be. But people who use others rarely make their intentions obvious. They don't push you away. They don't tell you the truth. Instead, they give you just enough affection to keep you attached, just enough attention to keep you interested, just enough hope to keep you waiting. And over time, that can become incredibly confusing. You find yourself questioning your instincts, making excuses for behavior that hurts you, convincing yourself that things will change. The difficult part is that the signs are often subtle. They don't appear all at once. They reveal themselves through patterns. Patterns that expose whether someone values you as a person or simply values what you provide. Today, we're going to uncover 7 powerful signs that reveal the difference between genuine love and emotional convenience. Because sometimes, the person you're fighting so hard to keep is only fighting to keep the benefits you bring into their life. And the first sign often hides inside something that seems harmless at first. At first, this sign can be incredibly difficult to recognize. Because on the surface, it looks like appreciation. He thanks you when you help him. He enjoys your attention. He values your support. He likes having you around. And that feels good. It feels like you're important to him. But over time, a question begins to emerge. Does he actually know who you are? Think about your conversations. How often does he show genuine curiosity about your thoughts, your fears, your dreams, your goals, the things that matter most to you? Or do conversations somehow keep circling back to him? His problems, his frustrations, his plans, his needs. People who genuinely love you want to understand your inner world. They want to know what excites you, what hurts you, what makes you who you are. Because their interest isn't limited to what you provide. It's rooted in who you are as a person. Someone who is using you often operates differently. They appreciate your role in their life, not necessarily your humanity. They enjoy the comfort you provide, the attention you give, the emotional support you offer. But they invest very little energy in truly knowing you. That's why many people eventually reach a painful realization. They've spent months, sometimes years, learning everything about someone who knows surprisingly little about them. And when that realization arrives, it hurts. Because it forces you to ask a difficult question. Do they love me? Or do they simply love how I make their life easier? The answer becomes even clearer when the focus shifts away from their needs and toward yours. Because that's where another subtle pattern starts to appear. One of the clearest signs that someone is using you is how they respond when the attention is no longer focused on them. When they need support, you're expected to be available. When they're struggling, you're expected to listen. When they need reassurance, advice, comfort, or encouragement, they know exactly where to find you. And because you care about them, you show up. Again and again. But what happens when the situation is reversed? What happens when you're the one having a difficult day? What happens when you need understanding? When you need comfort? When you need someone to simply listen? That's where the difference begins to appear. Instead of feeling supported, you feel guilty for needing support. Instead of feeling heard, you feel like you're asking for too much. The conversation quickly shifts away from your feelings. Your struggles seem less important. Your needs seem inconvenient. Not because anyone says it directly, because their behavior communicates it. They become distracted, impatient, emotionally unavailable. Suddenly, the energy they expect from you is energy they rarely offer in return. And that creates a painful imbalance. You start carrying the emotional weight of two people. You become the listener, the supporter, the encourager, the safe place. While having very few places to put your own emotions, love creates room for both people. Using someone creates a relationship where one person's needs consistently matter more than the other's, and after a while, you stop expecting support. You become used to giving without receiving. That's when something interesting starts happening. The relationship begins feeling stable only when you're providing something. Because the moment you stop giving, their effort starts changing too. And that reveals another sign that many people completely miss. This sign confuses a lot of people because, at first, it looks like proof that he cares. Every time you start creating distance, he suddenly becomes more attentive. He texts more, calls more, shows more affection, makes more promises. For a moment, it feels like the relationship is finally improving, like he's finally realizing your value, like he's finally stepping up. But pay close attention to the timing. Does his effort appear because he's committed to the relationship? Or because he's afraid of losing access to what you provide? That's a very different question. Someone who genuinely loves you doesn't wait until you're halfway out the door to show up. Their effort is consistent. Their interest is consistent. Their presence is consistent. But when someone is primarily focused on keeping you available, their behavior often follows a pattern. The less available you become, the more interested they seem. The more available you become, the less effort they make. It's almost as if your attention becomes valuable only when it's at risk of disappearing. And that's why this dynamic can become emotionally exhausting. You start confusing temporary effort with lasting change. Every time you begin losing hope, they give you just enough attention to restore it. Just enough affection to make you stay, just enough reassurance to keep you invested. Then, once they feel secure again, the energy fades, the cycle repeats. And because those moments of attention feel so powerful, many people interpret them as evidence of love. But love shouldn't appear only when it's in danger of being lost. Love shouldn't need a crisis to become visible. The truth is that consistent effort tells you far more than occasional bursts of affection ever will. And when you look closely at this pattern, it often reveals something uncomfortable. He enjoys the benefits of having you in his life, but he may not be willing to accept the responsibilities that come with truly loving you. And that's where the next sign begins to show itself. This is where the difference between love and convenience becomes impossible to ignore. He wants your affection. He wants your attention. He wants your emotional support. He wants your loyalty. He wants someone to listen when life gets difficult. He wants someone who believes in him, someone who comforts him, someone who is always there. But when it comes to responsibility, everything changes. Suddenly, he's unsure, unclear, unwilling to make sacrifices, unwilling to have difficult conversations, unwilling to take ownership when problems appear. He enjoys the comfort of the relationship, but avoids the commitment that gives the relationship meaning. And that creates a painful contradiction. You find yourself giving relationship-level effort to someone who offers convenience-level commitment. You're investing emotionally, planning for the future, trying to build something real. Meanwhile, they're enjoying the benefits without carrying the same weight. This doesn't always show up as an obvious refusal to commit. Sometimes it's much subtler. Whenever the relationship requires effort, they disappear. Whenever accountability is needed, they become defensive. Whenever sacrifice is necessary, they suddenly have reasons why they can't show up. Yet when they need emotional support, validation, or attention, they're right there. That's because taking is easy. Building is hard. Anyone can enjoy the rewards of a relationship. Love is revealed by who accepts the responsibility that comes with those rewards. And if someone repeatedly accepts what you give while avoiding what they owe, eventually something inside you starts noticing the imbalance. You begin feeling appreciated when you're useful, but strangely invisible when you're not. And that feeling reveals the next sign. This sign is often felt long before it's understood. You can't always explain it. You just notice a difference. When you're helping, supporting, encouraging, listening, or giving your energy, the connection feels stronger. They seem interested, present, engaged, but the moment you're the one who needs something, the dynamic shifts. The attention decreases, the effort decreases, the interest fades. And little by little, a painful message starts forming in the back of your mind. You feel important when you're useful. Not necessarily when you're vulnerable. Think about the moments when you've struggled, the moments when you were overwhelmed, heartbroken, exhausted. Did they move closer to you? Or did they seem emotionally distant? Did they make space for your pain? Or did your pain feel like an inconvenience? People who genuinely love you don't just enjoy your strengths. They show up for your weaknesses too. They don't only value the version of you that is giving, they value the version of you that is hurting, the version of you that needs support, the version of you that isn't performing at your best. Because love sees the person, not the service they provide. When someone is using you, however, the relationship often feels conditional. The connection feels strongest when you're meeting their needs, weakest when you need your own needs met. And that's a heartbreaking place to be. Because eventually, you start believing that your value comes from what you do rather than who you are. You begin measuring your worth by how much you give, how much you help, how much you sacrifice. And once that mindset takes hold, something deeper begins happening. You stop simply receiving love. You start working for it. This is one of the most damaging shifts that can happen in a relationship because it doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually. At first, you do a little extra because you care. You become more patient, more understanding, more forgiving. You tell yourself that relationships require effort, and they do. But healthy effort and emotional overcompensation are not the same thing. Over time, you start noticing that you're always the one trying harder. You're the one initiating conversations. You're the one fixing misunderstandings. You're the one making sacrifices. You're the one carrying the emotional weight. And without realizing it, you begin treating love like something that must be earned. You think that if you give enough, he'll finally appreciate you. If you're patient enough, he'll finally commit. If you're understanding enough, he'll finally change. So you keep investing, you keep proving, you keep hoping. But the finish line never arrives. Because the problem was never that you weren't enough. The problem is that love isn't supposed to feel like a constant audition. Real love doesn't require you to repeatedly prove your worth. It doesn't leave you wondering whether you've done enough to deserve care. It doesn't make affection feel like a reward for good behavior. When someone truly loves you, the relationship feels like a partnership, not a performance. You don't spend your time trying to earn a place in their heart. You already have one. And when that security is missing, the consequences run deeper than most people realize. Because eventually, no matter how much effort you give, a painful feeling starts growing inside you. A feeling that reveals the final and most powerful sign of all. You can be lying next to someone, talking to someone, spending time with someone, and still feel completely alone. This is often the sign that changes everything. Because unlike the others, it has very little to do with what he says or does. It has everything to do with how you feel. You can spend hours together, talk every day, share experiences, laugh together, even appear happy from the outside. And yet, deep inside, something feels empty. You don't feel truly understood. You don't feel truly seen. You don't feel emotionally connected in the way you keep hoping you will. That's because loneliness is not the absence of people. It's the absence of genuine emotional connection. And when someone is using you, that connection often remains just out of reach. You're close enough to stay, but not close enough to feel secure. You share your heart, but rarely feel like they share theirs. You listen deeply to their struggles, but they rarely seem interested in understanding yours. You know their fears, their goals, their frustrations. Yet sometimes, it feels like they barely know the real you. And that loneliness can be incredibly confusing. Because from the outside, it looks like you're in a relationship, but emotionally, you're carrying much of it alone. You keep waiting for the connection to deepen, for the intimacy to grow, for the relationship to become what you imagined it could be. But instead, you find yourself feeling isolated in the very place where you should feel most supported. That's why this sign matters so much. Because the greatest clue that someone is using you isn't always found in their behavior. Sometimes it's found in your emotional reality, the feeling that no matter how much you give, no matter how much you try, no matter how much you hope, you still feel unseen. And when that feeling becomes a pattern, it's often telling you something important, something you may have been avoiding for a very long time. Let's go back to the question that started this conversation. Does he truly love you, or does he simply love what you provide? At first, that difference can be almost impossible to see. Both situations can include attention, affection, time together, shared memories, hope for the future. That's why so many people stay longer than they should. They're not holding on to what the relationship is. They're holding on to what they believe it could become, but the truth always reveals itself through patterns, not promises, not excuses, not potential, patterns. People who love you want to know you, not just benefit from you. They care about your needs, not only their own. They invest consistently, not only when they're afraid of losing you. They accept the responsibilities of a relationship, not just the rewards. They value you when you're struggling, not only when you're giving. And most importantly, they don't make you feel like you have to earn the love they're offering. Because real love is not a transaction. It's not a performance. It's not something you purchase through sacrifice, patience, or endless understanding. Real love creates connection, safety, mutual effort, mutual care. So, if you found yourself recognizing several of these signs today, don't ignore that feeling. Pay attention to it. Not because every imperfect relationship is doomed, not because people can't grow or change, but because your emotional well-being matters too. You deserve more than being useful. You deserve more than being convenient. You deserve more than being someone's source of attention, comfort, validation, or support. You deserve to be known, to be valued, to be cared for, to be loved for who you are, not just for what you do. Because being needed and being loved can feel similar in the beginning. But over time, the difference changes everything. And the moment you stop confusing those two things may be the moment you begin seeing the relationship exactly as it is.